Hello, welcome to the Thomas Marathon Podcast with me, John Hill, the running podcast for the over 35s with Marathon Dreams. Episode 96. I'm joined by a very special guest today. I'm joined by Beth McArdle. How are you, Beth?
I'm very well, John, thank you, and it's lovely to be here.
Good, lovely to have you. Bit of background on Beth. So Beth and I have worked together for quite a while in the various guises in my group fitness program, which I've mentioned before. And Beth, as I record this, is a couple of weeks removed from completing her first marathon, which was the London Marathon in 2026. So how are we feeling after the marathon, Beth?
Delighted with the medal. Slightly missing the routine of the training, or really missing the routine of the training. And slightly frustrated still that I didn't have the race I set out to, and trying desperately hard to appreciate the race that I had.
Okay, well, we'll dive into that because I think that will definitely resonate with a lot of the listeners. So, first question for me is bring everybody up to speed in terms of your journey with fitness, with running, and how we got to doing the London Marathon.
Okay, so I work as a lawyer in a firm, a national firm in the middle of the city, and I work really long hours, and I've fallen into all sorts of bad habits that we all do. Snacking, we've got pick and mix at work, so enjoyed those, and started to just basically get really unfit, and I'd never been really unfit, and just all bad habits. So decided one August morning that I was going to change that, and joined Women in the Move with John. And realized how much I loved the environment and the camaraderie and the banter, and but also being outside. I'd always run, I'd always struggled with the gym, and Women in the Move just gave me this different option that I really enjoyed. And what I love about it is it doesn't matter what fitness you are, there's something there for everyone. So I always push myself incredibly hard in the Women in the Move sessions, but they then led to me doing a HYROX, which I never would have done had I not been part of that community, and been supported so much. Having done the HYROX, I was called by a hospice, the hospice that I'd raised money for during that HYROX, to ask me if I wanted to run the London Marathon for them, to raise money for them again. And I said yes. John will smile because I did feel slightly strange about the whole thing, because I didn't really want to do it. It felt like a big commitment, and also when it's not a choice that you've made, it's a really funny way of handling it. And John said to me, just be annoyed about it, get it out your system, and then focus on the training, which is exactly what I did. And then worked with John on a training plan. So I followed that religiously for 16 weeks. Actually really enjoyed the training plan, got a lot out of it, liked being told how far to run and when to run, and also had my diet looked at, and drank lots and lots of water, to the point that I went to a Bupa health check and everything was in the green, which it hadn't been the time I'd gone before. So that was a huge change for me.
Mm.
Um, 20-mile training run. I had the first twinge of my ankle, just put it down to the fact that I'd run 20 miles. Unfortunately, that twinge didn't go away. And then when I hit London Marathon week, I thought Voltarol and rock tape would be my saving grace, but seemingly not.
Definitely, some of the listeners will definitely resonate with that, I'm sure. Definitely.
Exactly,
So,
exactly.
in
The
terms of
magic
just
fear of everything.
yeah, just circling back. So when you joined us in the group fitness sense, that was you were coming off the back of a weight loss journey, weren't you?
I was, yeah. So
Yourself.
I'd lost 3.5 stone at that point, but that was purely through to diet, but
Yep.
didn't feel fit, didn't feel healthy, which is a weird thing to say when you've been on a good diet, but I didn't feel particularly healthy. And I think that was probably because I was still spending a lot of hours inside at work, and
Yeah.
not getting fresh air, and not exercising, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. So what was your so prior to you sort of hitting that weight loss journey, what was your running history? So how did you run
Yeah, I've
before in the
had a love
past or
affair. Yeah, I've had a love affair with running over the years. I
right.
ran a lot as a child. I was in the athletics team. I did 1,500 and 800 meters and ran
Right,
for
okay.
Kent. So I'd had a potted history. I had done a marathon along when I about 20 years ago, and that went okay. I've done a few halves in between, but running really for me was always a an escape from a busy job, a busy family life, people constantly needing me. Running was my way out. But then equally, if I was finding life hard, then I didn't want to go running, because then I'd have to think about how hard my life was. And and that's well problems, but so it's been a love-hate relationship with running, but I think I've genuinely fallen back in love with it again doing this marathon training. I
That's good.
definitely wanted it to be part of my life going forwards.
Brilliant. So when you, if you don't mind me asking, when you sort of started your weight loss journey, what had happened for you to get into a place where you needed to lose weight? Was it, did you fall out of love with running? What was the,
I let everything else in my life take over, and
oh, right,
I wasn't the priority in my own life at all. I was very much sort of a backstage entrance. I had a child, I had big promotions at work, I allowed work to dominate a lot.
right.
We'd lost my mum, so my family needed me more, and I just found that there were little things that just sort of incremental that you don't notice at the time till all of a sudden you realize I've just ballooned and I'm massive and I'm unhappy and I've got to do something about this.
What was the, because some people that may listen to this may be in a place where they're at the start of their journey potentially, and they might have some sort of, body image composition change goals or whatever it might be. So what was the catalyst for you to say, I've got to sort this out?
Uh, it was a picture at a birthday party in a
Right.
dress that I thought I looked really nice in. And photos are funny things, aren't they? You can have photo of one angle and then another, and you look totally different. But in this case, all of the angles and all of the photos, I just thought, you're a mother of a youngster. I do a tough job. I need to sort myself out. I don't want to be a 50-year-old that just, I should have been on the 50, 40. I was heading to 50. It was a choice of either like just let the ripcord go and just go with it and just, you know, age, I suppose, or grab hold of it, do something about it,
Yeah.
and make myself as fit as I can be. I mean, I'm
Mm.
not a finished article by any stretch of imagination, but what I can do now compared to what I could do mid-40s is incomparable.
Yeah. So when you started the fitness journey, for example, what was it that made you evolve into somebody that wasn't just going to get fit, but also look at quite challenging things like a HYROX first, and then potentially the marathon? What was it?
Would be my coach on this call who needles me to try harder, but also I think the community I was in, and the fitness is quite addictive. Sort of as you find that your body can do more and
Yeah.
you can actually do more,
Yeah.
then you want, and I'm quite a competitive person.
Right.
So I think it was almost, but for once I was competing with myself and it was like,
Okay.
actually, I can do this. I can. I mean, HYROX was a massive thing for me, as you know. Someone had said to me 6 months before I did HYROX, you're going to do HYROX and you're going to get yourself round and you're going to be really proud of yourself. I'd have been like, absolutely no way, particularly watching people do all those burpees. But the more I trained, and again, John, you helped me with the training program on that one. And I absolutely loved the difficult sessions on a Sunday morning when you set us the workout challenges. But again, it's for me, it was the community of people that I do it with and just all the support that you get. I think you need that as much as you do someone to coach you.
Yeah.
But everyone has a different, don't they? Everyone has a different journey. Everyone finds different. But for me, that piece has been such a game changer in my life.
Yeah. I guess the question is really because not everybody, this might surprise people listening, but not everybody has to do high rocks and marathons. They are choices.
No, there are
So
choices. There
yeah,
are a lot of choices.
it's a
Sorry,
I was
just
surprised myself for
back.
that question as
But
well.
yeah.
It really is this a choice here as he enters another marathon? But I suppose the question is, what made you think that I want to push this to a new level? Because losing weight, as I know, because I've done it myself, hard.
Yeah.
Being consistent with any sort of fitness, hard. Any
Yeah.
fitness at all, hard. What is it about you, Beth, that made you go, right, I want to next level this?
Uh, I think family would laugh if they hear me say this. Nothing's ever enough. I'm always striving for the next thing.
Okay.
I think it's a personality trait, definitely a personality trait. And for me, I think it was as I realized how my fitness was and how blessed I was actually that my body let me do the things I was asking it to do. I
Yeah.
wanted to do more. And what's really funny is after the marathon, when I went into work on the Monday, my team were all laughing at me and saying, right, what's next then? Because they know
Right.
that there'll be another challenge, because I'm terrified that if I don't do that to myself, that I'll go back to that person that I don't want to be again. So I feel like you have to push forwards and have something to aim for.
Yeah. Now, if somebody's listening to this who has never been overweight or anything like that, or in a place where they've not really liked themselves very much, what you just said there would be quite a foreign concept. But
Yeah.
actually, as somebody that's been there, and I did it literally as we record this, I did a reel on this morning. There's almost like an unconscious thing of if I miss a workout, there's that little voice that says, "Oh, you got to be careful here because you'll get fat again." Now, obviously, we won't on a
Yeah.
logical level or a conscious level, but it's always a little gremlin that sits on your shoulder.
It is.
And
It
whether
is.
it's a good or a bad thing is questionable because if it keeps you going, good. If it sort of acts as a neurosis, bad. But I can sort of, I think some people listening may resonate with that because it is a concern, especially if you're coming from a place of, not liking what
Yeah.
you're about. So
Yeah.
timeline wise, then, so when you did, how old were you when you did HYROX?
50.
50. I think you're 50, weren't you?
Yeah, 50. It's for my
And you're
50th year, wasn't it?
50th year, yeah, and you're
Yeah.
52, and you did the marathon. You were 52, and you did the marathon, yeah.
Yes.
First marathon. Was that
Yes.
your first 26.2? Or
I did one 20 years ago, but
right?
that's long enough ago, John, that we just don't count that one.
Well, okay, so you have been there before, but
I
obviously you
have
had a
been there
bit of a
before. I can't remember any of it other than, the relief at the end.
right. Okay, so in terms of let's talk about the marathon experience. So what I want to do, I sort of reverse engineer this. So I talk about the marathon first, and the training second. So
Okay.
talk me through your London Marathon experience.
So as we've said before, I ran for charity. So it's quite a weird experience for me from the outset because when you run for charity, and I didn't realize this, you're put in a different group even from when you register at the marathon, which is a really weird thing. You're not part of you didn't feel you feel part of a team, but not part of a team. So
Right.
prepare yourselves for that if you're running for charity because you're in you go to a special colored stand, you can't drop a bag. And then you have to go to a different start line. And I hadn't prepared myself for that. So I found that just really, it felt really odd that you weren't included in the main thrust of things.
Okay.
So that was day 4. Going and getting your number and seeing your name on the wall. It's all amazing. You just realize that you're part of something really special. And just all of the people that I met and talked to, were just lovely. And then people walking around dressed as huge tubs of Vaseline or huge tubs of Voltarol. It was just a surreal experience, but
Yeah.
I loved it. In the morning, for me, the massive shout out for me, and I'm humbled by them. And I'd actually like to volunteer myself with the volunteers. They were incredible from getting you to the start line, giving you your water, keeping you going. Just the support I had on the day from them was amazing. And the crowds were brilliant, but the support guys, these guys that have chosen to come along, give up their days to make our experience as great as possible, it was really humbling. Particularly for me towards the end because of the issues that I had during the marathon. It was so much appreciated. So very nervous at the start. Probably shouted at my husband Simon because he took us the wrong way to the start line, and I wanted to walk as little as possible. And all of a sudden, I was walking a mile and a half. I hadn't expected to. Um, but then everybody when you were in the pen waiting to go were amazing. The pacers were lovely and just telling everyone that they'd got this. And it was an incredible experience and crossing that line. Then I had 6 really good miles running, had to slow myself down on the first one, but then had really good pace for the next 5. And then the ankle injury that I had sustained kicked in, I think just after mile 6. I had a huge pain up my leg, and I realized that my race should have been probably over. But because I did it for charity and because I'm stubborn, I wasn't going to stop there. So I made the decision that I'd either try and keep running, but knew that that would be limited, or I would stop right now and I would walk really fast and phone my support team and just say, "Can you all load yourselves up with ibuprofen?" So it was quite daunting seeing how many kilometers that I had to go,
Yeah.
knowing that this was going to be just not painful. So I had a choice. I could either be grumpy about it and get to the finish line, or I could just accept what had happened to me, acknowledge the fact that I had trained really hard and done all I could, and it was just one of those runs. It was just one of those runs, and I would make the most of the day. So I went with the latter one to
Yeah.
make the most of the day. I still had an amazing experience. I think I averaged 16-minute miles, which wasn't bad for someone carrying an injury. The last 3 kilometers were probably the worst because I had really bad blisters, but by then I'd had 12 ibuprofen, so I was enjoying life. The bit that made me smile was about point 4 before the end. Someone was holding a tray of Jaeger bombs and they were saying to me, "Come have a Jaeger bomb." And I was thinking, tempted, but I've had 12 ibuprofen.
Yeah.
Car collapse, just before the finish line,
Yeah, yeah.
on Jaeger
You could
bombs.
you
But
could you could have got yourself on the news there, Beth, for
I
that one.
could
That
have
could have
myself on the news.
that could have been a
King
headline. Yeah,
newsworthy.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Lawyer
yeah,
passed up
yeah,
from drug
yeah.
and
That's it.
drink.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I did do that. But crossing the line was just one of the most incredible feelings of my life. And then when they put the medal around your neck, and the lady that put the medal around the neck gave me such a massive hug because I was in quite an emotional state
yeah.
by then.
Of course.
And it was just really special, really, really privileged to be part of it, particularly when you see how many people this year have applied to do it again.
Yeah,
You realize just, but the whole experience, if you can get onto the London Marathon, the whole experience. And there were a lot of people that were injured like me that I was talking to on the way round, but also some people doing it who were carrying disabilities, or people in wheelchairs, or people dressed in ridiculous costumes that were incredible. And it just, the whole piece is just such an amazing day. You just are surrounded by positivity, and I loved it. In a world as negative as we live in at the moment, I had a lot of hours of just these amazing people being supportive and kind and shouting your name and shouting, after you to keep you going. It was wonderful. So yeah, I got as much as I could out of that experience, even though it wasn't the experience that I had crossed the start line in.
yeah. What was it that? What were the key factors that? Because no one would have. I guess no one would have judged you for stopping. Because obviously
Yeah.
you don't know
Yeah.
what you don't know what damage you could have done or
No.
can do, whatever. We don't know. We don't know the extent of anything. So I think no one would have judged you for stopping. So what were the key things that said, "Oh, I'm going to finish this. I want to do this." What were the key things that went off in your head?
Uh, my daughter being there, I
Okay.
didn't want her to see mummy fail.
Okay.
And my niece and my sister. And because all of my family had been so supportive while I'd been out training, I've been gone hours on weekends. You know what it's like.
Yeah.
You're not around. My team at work have fussed and over me and looked after me. The people that I was raising the money for, it's a hospice where people go where they are terminally ill. They looked after my mum just before she died. And just the fact that people are being so brave and undergoing what they're going, and the charity I was raising the money for, there was no way I ever wanted to feel like I hadn't earned every single penny of the £6,500 I raised.
Wow.
It was really important to me that I finish it for that. And also, I think for my own sense of self, I had trained for months for this. I had tried as hard as I possibly could, and I wanted to make sure I got that medal at the end. And so for me, stopping was never an issue. In fact, I avoided the medical tent in case they made me stop, which is naughty in itself. Even when I got really bad visitors. But
Not to be construed as medical
just
advice.
misconstrued that
Disclaimer,
I
folks.
am not
Disclaimer. This
advocating
is yeah.
that behaviour at all. But
Yeah.
but for me, it was, even when I knew that I couldn't run it, it was never an option that I wouldn't finish it,
Yeah.
however
Okay.
long it took.
Okay. I think the lesson to extract from that is the power of the why.
Yeah.
Because obviously, in some cases, people think they can't do it when they actually can. You had an injury as well, so that you've obviously got things to consider there. So it's that power of the why, and I think that's a real key lesson to take away of remembering the why. Because
Agreed.
that gets you around. That does get you around. So well done, of course, for doing it, for gritting it out. Real story of courage for me in terms of just getting round. Of course, we've got to be careful of advocating running on injuries because that's not what we're doing here.
I'm not
Yeah,
advocating it.
and I want to be. I don't want to
I will
discredit
pay
you,
the
Beth, but
price
I want to be
now.
clear
Yeah,
on that.
agreed.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
want to be clear on that. We're not saying run on an injury here. What we
No.
are talking about is the ability. Yeah, because people are like everyone's nuts. You said no, we didn't. What I was saying is it's about that power of saying no.
Yeah.
I'm going to finish this because there's also the fact that you don't know when you would have been out there again.
And I will probably never do the London Marathon again, which is
Yeah,
why I think it was so important. And, there were people out there that I was talking to that their heads had clearly got the better of them. And if they'd convinced themselves that they couldn't
yeah,
run anymore, and I think your head is probably your biggest enemy on that piece,
yeah,
which was why even with the race that I had, I couldn't allow my head for 1 minute to say
yeah,
to me, "You can't do this." Because if I'd started on that thought process, there's no way I'd have got round.
yeah.
you know.
Well, it would have sort of it's the double whammy, isn't it? It would have compounded the
Yeah,
injury, and when you
yeah.
think about something, the more you think about something, the more of the thing you get. So, yeah, it would have just compounded it. And how's the ankle now?
So the ankle's recovering.
Good.
I've had physio on it. It's not swollen as much anymore, so I no longer look like I've got the leg of a cow, which is a treat. Um, the stiffness is gone, but I think it'll be another 2 weeks, at least another 2 weeks. I'm not allowed to run again till
Okay.
it stops hurting. Uh,
Okay.
but yeah, I
Good.
am
So you're
feeling
on the
much
mend.
better. Much better. Yes.
Good.
Thank
So
you.
talk to me then about the training process. So you've laid some stuff already. You've mentioned the fact that obviously very busy career, family life. How many kids has you got?
Just the one.
Just the
Just the
one.
one. What
So,
and a
so
dog.
and a
And
dog, yeah. So very busy
two
life,
sisters
and
and 6 nieces. So,
yeah,
they're all they all want your time.
yes. So very busy life, very busy career, all these things going on. What was the training experience like for you, and how did you manage it?
So, I'm very lucky. I live in Harborne and I work in the city. So I did a lot of the week runs, running in that work. So
Right.
actually that worked quite well. And then on the
Just to
weekend,
illustrate that for listeners, it's probably about 3 to 4 miles
yeah,
distance one
it
way,
is.
or
Yeah. As the bird
yeah,
fly. And then you
five
can
to 5 to 6, 5 to 7K ish. Yeah,
exactly. And
yeah,
then you can add on the extra distance you needed to really easily by pushing out by another road. So it's a really good I found it a really good way, but I'm very blessed that I got that opportunity to run into work, which I know not everybody does. But for my life, I was leaving work home probably 5:30, 6 in the morning and running in. As if I knew I had to do an hour's run, I could leave at that time and I'd be at work, have a shower, ready to go, long before the day starts. My long runs were Sunday mornings. I've got my best friend Span join me. She was only supposed to be going up to half a marathon, but she enjoyed it so much she kept going with me. So she did all the long runs with me, which I think was probably a real help, to be honest,
yeah,
because she kept me going when I was feeling a bit dark and down. But to be frank, I only had one really bad run that I didn't enjoy, and that was because I'd not drunk enough water, and I did it on the Saturday rather than Sunday, and I always found I needed the Saturday to recover from the week to then run on the Sunday. So I think in my head I thought it was going to be a bad run, and it was a bad run. But other than that, I absolutely loved every run that I did, and I listened to podcasts, which I'd never done when running before, particularly on the longer runs, just to try and keep my mind off my battles in my own head, like we all have when we run.
yeah,
Um, but no, I loved this is the plan, these are the boxes you tick every time you've done one. And even with the injury on the training, I think I only missed 3 runs. So in the latter part of the trainings as well. But to go from being able to run probably comfortably 3 miles at week 1, and then at week, is it 14 or 15? I can't remember when you and I talked, and I ended up doing 2:20s, was
yeah,
I couldn't believe that I had run 20 miles. My body felt every part of it, but I couldn't believe that in that time you could improve that much. And I guess you probably were capable of doing more. You just don't think about the fact that you could do
yeah,
more.
yeah. So what impact do you think that had on you then on the day? Obviously, how do you think helped you, irrespective of what
I think
happened
it
on the
was
day?
I went into the run. No, I knew that I was never worried I wouldn't be able to do the marathon distance.
Okay.
I was worried that about my ankle, but I wasn't worried. I was like, "You've done 20 now," and you know what it's like on the training plans. They're quite big jumps, aren't they? You sort of got to 10 miles, and it's all very lovely. Then all of a sudden you're at 15, then you're at 20, and then you're at
Yeah.
20 again. And these are long distances. But not only that, you're running in the week as well. And I was thinking, oh, if I do a 20-mile on a Sunday, I'm never going to be running on a Tuesday. And there you
Yeah.
are on a Tuesday, and your body's responding amazingly. I think we totally underestimate what we are physically capable of. I know I
Yeah.
certainly have in this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What would you say then are your top tips for anybody in a similar situation to yourself who perhaps wants to do an event where it would take a bit of training and perhaps concerned about time and fitting things in? What would you say to them?
If you want to do something, you find the time. You find the time to do it. If you really want to do it, you find the time. And I appreciate that that sounds like it's really easy. And I appreciate it's not really easy. And I have a life where I don't have a lot of time, particularly for myself. But it's, I think people being, and I use the word selfish, but it's not selfish because it's really important. But you have to be selfish. If you're going to do something like this, you have to say to yourself and to your family and your friends who are actually really, really understanding about it, I've got to do this. If I'm going to do this, this is what it's going to take. And you also I did have to adapt my life slightly. Weekends were usually really busy. We've been really selfish this year. for the 4 months I was training for the London Marathon, because it was such a huge thing, I didn't do things on weekends that I would normally do, and I did have to look at my life and work out what I could fit in and when, and
Yeah.
some things gave that I wish hadn't had to give, but they did, but it was worth it. For something like HYROX, it wasn't quite such, it wasn't the hours of running that you do with a marathon, but
Yeah.
I think you've got to be really sensible on, actually, can you fit this into your life? And then if you're going to fit it into life, make sure you do it, and find ways of making yourself accountable for it. We had my training plan up on a board in the kitchen, and Imogen put a sticker on every single time I did a run. So I knew I had to answer to her if I didn't do a run, which I wasn't prepared to do. So it's finding
Yeah.
that thing that
Yeah.
that helps you to
Absolutely.
help yourself.
And something that you mentioned, I think I'll ask about is it, and also that why as well, having that why. So yes, you're right. If you want to do something, you'll find the time. That's that's it shouldn't sound harsh. It's common sense, but for me, it's that why as well. Having that, making sure that you know why you're doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because that keeps you going on those days where you really don't want to put your trainers on, or it's raining horribly, or it's dark for another day. I mean, I was most upset that I had this lovely pair of the sort of pale pink trainers, and within the first run in January, they were black from all the
Yeah.
mulch and all the leaves. I think I was more traumatized by that than I was about the running, but
Yeah.
I got over it. I bought another pair, we're all fine.
It's a pain. It's a
Um,
pain that never ends.
Exactly, exactly. But I think when you want to do something like that and then you do it and you come out the other side and it's such an amazing thing. I think as you get older as well, it's not like when you're a kid where there's loads of life changing moments. You got big birthdays and you go to senior school, or you'd even go to uni. When we get to this age, there aren't those things to celebrate. And if you can do something that celebrates you because of something you've achieved, that's pretty special.
Amazing. So one question I ask is, if there's somebody out there who is similar to yourself, perhaps sort of late 40s, maybe early 50s, who's thinking, I want to do something remarkable, whatever that might be, what would you say to them?
Just gird up and do it. Just don't keep putting it off.
Yeah.
Life goes so quickly, and you can talk yourself out of things a lot quicker than you can talk yourself into things. But
Yeah.
also, I think you need to find something that you're going to enjoy, because it's not about the event. The event is amazing, and the marathon was amazing, but you've got to do, for this, wasn't just 16 weeks, it was 16 weeks of running, but probably the 2 years before that I spent with you, John, and on Women in the Mood, getting physically strong enough that I could take on something
Yeah.
like this. Um, and I think that's really important as well. And you've got to enjoy what you're doing. Because if you don't enjoy it, it's really easy then to not do it. So it's finding something that is reachable and obtainable. And the marathon was only obtainable because I had done the things in the background for the years preceding it. If I hadn't
Yeah.
done HYROX, I never would have put myself for a marathon. But I hadn't done Woman in the Move and had all the sessions with the girls and done goodness knows how many burpees and base jumps, I would never have done HYROX. So I think if you're going to do something, make sure that it's something that you can actually achieve as well.
Yeah. That's good advice. I think it's important to know that, and these things they're a process. So, we often speak to people at the end of the process, but actually, you need to remember, if you're at the start of the process, then you've got to start at the start.
Yeah.
And, if you, example, it's not about me, but if you just said to me at 28, you're going to run 16 marathons after 35, that would have been impossible for me to even conceptualize at that age. So, but I had to start, and then
Yeah.
it went from there. So, but fair play to you, good. So, the last couple of questions from me. I have a philosophical question that I ask everybody, which is, how has this whole experience changed you, Beth?
I found it quite humbling. I think just, the early morning runs, and there's certain people that I've got to know, just a nod your head and a smile on a Sunday morning, that all of us were out running together. Um, we actually hit park run a few times, and I'd forgotten how amazing that is to see all of the
Yeah,
people round the park.
yeah,
I think my kid as well, she saw mummy doing something completely out of her comfort zone. And she turned into my own little cheerleader. And getting cuddles from a 13-year-old is quite hard. And on marathon day, every time she saw me, I had the biggest cuddle. And just knowing that you've done something that's made your kid look at you slightly differently is amazing. And probably just remembering that even raising all the money and the cause I raised it for is what happens outside your own life in your own bubble, that you can make a difference and you can. And I read somewhere once that when people see you running and you're smiling, it might encourage them to go out running. So I made sure I had big smiles on my face whenever I saw anybody, because
Yeah.
you never know how your story or what you've done might just give someone the courage to live their own story.
Yeah.
And then life's a better place if we're all much more relaxed and less stressed and enjoying and smiling at each other.
Yeah, I think so, and I think you never, and there's the old classic cliche, and I do believe this, you'd never know who you're inspiring,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's never the loud people. It's never the people
No,
that it's the quiet person who goes, "Well, maybe because she did that." You don't know who you've inspired to
no,
you know.
and it's silly things like having quality time with my best friend. She and I hadn't we hadn't seen each other as much as that, and all of a sudden once a week we're together for 4 hours, putting the world to rights. Probably her more than me on some of the hills where she had to talk at me to get me up them. But
Of course, yeah.
that's the joy of training in Birmingham with someone who's much fitter than you. But
Yeah.
there were so many gifts from this. I'm so happy that I've done it. And it's not looking, say, at that one piece, the one race. You've got to look at the whole experience as a piece. And I've also kept a journal, John, which I'm hoping I'm going to sell to an amazing publisher, and I'll be the next Bridget Jones of running. So,
And
who knows? I
what
could
a
be a
vision.
millionaire.
What a
Yeah.
vision that is. What a vision that is.
Yeah.
So, thank you. Appreciate that. What's next?
Don't know. TBC, but there will be something. My best friend's trying to persuade me to do Kilimanjaro, but I fancy doing something, which I think we probably will do. But
Yeah.
I think I'd like to do. I didn't think I'd say this because I thought after London and all the trauma of not having the race I wanted, but I really want to do a marathon in the way that I know I can. So I'm hoping that we will speak again when I've had a run that actually reflects the training I put into it.
Yeah, yeah, and I was saying this to we've interviewed a few people who've been on this year from the spring marathons, and I think I always say the same thing. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with saying, because honestly, that's how when I did my first marathon was terrible. In comparison to now, it was terrible. It was terrible. But I had a strong why, doing it for mom. I was going to finish. It was really hot. Nearly bloody broke myself doing it, but I did it in the time that I told her, which I wouldn't recommend either. But because it was silly. But I did it anyway, and it was terrible. And a little thing went, oh, I think I can do better at that. And it wasn't. I wasn't confirming it. I wasn't saying,
Yeah.
oh, I know I can. I just went, I think there might be a bit more there. And I want to tell
Yeah.
everybody that's because you've said the same thing that, funny enough, with another interview I did with Dawn, someone who just did Manchester, has also said the same thing. It's okay to say, "Oh, okay, perhaps I can do better at that," and just be
It is
curious.
okay. Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
because I think the curiosity is very, very important, because it's the curiosity, and you'll know when you get to a point, won't you? You'll get to a point when you go, "That's enough. I can't.
Yeah.
I'm at my
Yeah.
limit here." But it's just explore your limits. So it's a fair play to you. So that's it. I think it's a very inspiring story, and I think I think it demonstrates the power of a why, and it's the resilience and the courage to just make it round. Because I remember watching you on the day on the tracking app, and I thought, oh, something's gone wrong here.
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
remember seeing
Everyone would say the same thing.
I was
Yeah.
tracking a few people, because London was a tricky one for a few of the people that I worked with, and I saw you, and I saw it, and I thought, oh, something's
Mm.
that's too much of a jump for it to just be a bit of fatigue. I thought
Yeah.
something's not quite right. So fair play. So how long did it take you in the end?
I don't actually know. I haven't even looked at any of the emails. I
Okay.
think it was just over 7 hours.
I think it was I do know, roughly about 7:15. I wanted to see
Yeah.
if you remembered it,
Yeah.
7:15. And I think that,
Yeah.
for me, for anybody listening, there's a couple of things to say here. I think firstly, I think that's harder than anything. I think being on your feet for that length of time is as hard as doing like a 3-hour marathon, a faster
Yeah.
run,
Yeah. Yeah.
because
Yeah. Yeah.
not only have you got the physical, you've got the psychological,
Yeah.
because you
Yeah.
are going towards the back, you are walking in slow, and there's going to be a
Seeing
little bit of
everyone go past you and you're
yeah,
frustrated as well. But you know what? I mean, you left me a couple of messages which I loved, particularly the Tower Bridge one. But can I tell them about the app that someone sent me, which was
yeah.
absolutely
Well, I was going to
game
ask him, because I haven't actually physically seen this. Did you hear the messages? Did you hear the
Yeah, yeah,
messages? Both of them.
yeah.
Okay, good, good.
They were great. So
Yeah,
it's a app called Rally, and you can put it in kilometers or miles. You just look it up and it finds your race, and then your friends and family can leave you messages. Now, it was great because I had messages that ranged from John's one, which was at Tower Bridge, like, just look up and enjoy it and really experience this. And then I would have loving ones. And then I had ones from my nieces, which were basically like sergeant majors in the army. You know, it's how you got to stop, but it's what you needed. And then I had emotional ones that made me cry. And then my husband asked me to get him an espresso frappuccino on my way round, because that's what he's like. So they were amazing. So if anyone is doing anything like a marathon, or I think they have 5Ks, all sorts, it's a really lovely way to, because you just get these messages that just, you're listening to your music or your podcast, and they pop in.
Yeah.
And not only that, but all of your supporters, I think, particularly when you've done something like a marathon where you've trained for so long and people have lived, eaten, and breathed your training with you, the fact that they could try and help your day be a little bit better and a little bit easier with these messages is just lovely. It's just
Yeah,
such a
that's
lovely thing.
Rally, yeah?
Yeah, right.
RALLY, yeah?
Yeah, and I think, to be honest, I think that really helped me get round, because every time I was feeling a bit, oh, another message would come on. I was like, well, I can't stop now because they've just told me that I'm the strongest person they know, and off you go. So,
Yeah.
it was really
Yeah,
good.
yeah. Just remember that when I did the London Marathon last time, people were sending me those marathon boosts, but I didn't have my phone. So I don't take my phone when I run. So I was
Yeah, you
like,
wouldn't
"Oh,
see
Matt,
them.
I gave you a boost." I was like, "Yeah, thanks."
Yeah, no, I didn't see any of mine till I finished, and then they came up on
Yeah,
my
the
emails
messages
or
you get. Yeah, a
something.
few people didn't
Yeah,
see
I didn't
those. Yeah,
see any of it.
it's such a big event, and there's
Yeah,
so much going on.
yeah.
It's
So I
hard to keep.
appreciate all that. Exactly.
Yeah, good,
Exactly.
but good. Yeah, well, yeah, rally. So have a look at that, because I'd never heard of that, and when Beth sent me the link, I was like, "Oh, that's quite cool." So I think that would really
Yeah, it
help.
was good. It was
Anything
good.
else from you, Beth?
Just a thank you to you, really.
Okay, you're welcome.
This wouldn't have, this whole thing, you've been such a huge part of my fitness journey, and I just really appreciate you. And he won't like me saying this to those that are listening, because, he doesn't like it when I say things like this, but he's brilliant. So thank you.
No, you're welcome. You're welcome. Well, I only, as I can't think of a better way to say it than, the old expression, you can only lead it to water. The person's got to drink. So,
Yeah, great.
yes, okay, I've got a fair old bit of experience when it comes to the ye old fitness game, as I call it. But the truth is, you need the right people. The framework's the framework, but you need the right people to follow the framework, and you need the right people to trust and know that they intrinsically can do it. And if you meet those people like yourself, then it's a dream to work with that, because you're like, right, here's what we need to do, and they just do it. So you're welcome, and
My
thank you,
pleasure.
Beth, and thank you for coming on. I appreciate it, and telling your stories. So hopefully that will inspire people to know that with a strong why and resilience and stubbornness, anything is possible.
Anything's
And just
possible.
to reiterate the message about, the injury side and things like that, that's something to always be mindful of and be careful of, because we're not talking about that necessarily. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about somebody that pushed through and got through, luckily, but not everybody will have that experience. Some people, you will have to stop.
Yeah, great.
And yeah, you just, yeah, and we just,
Nor do I recommend 12 ibuprofen in that 5 minute
no,
time
again,
either.
or
So,
Jaeger bombs. Yeah, we just need to
yeah,
we stick that
yeah.
disclaimer in there, because again, they'll have the pitchforks after me, as some people normally do on the internet for whatever. So we just need to be careful. But yeah, we just want to say that. But Beth, thank you very much, and hopefully you'll inspire a few people to just at least start a journey, perhaps, or realize what's possible. Because based on the fact that, just to reiterate the message here, this is Beth's done a HYROX and a marathon in her early 50s. So these are very, very hard things to do in their own way. So yeah, it is certainly possible, and hopefully Beth's proved that. So thank you everyone for listening. As always, I do appreciate it. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcast from. That's Spotify or Apple. I do appreciate it. If you're a regular listener, don't forget to drop me a review or a comment. That also really helps. And share the podcast with your friends. If you don't follow me on Instagram, please head over there at 12 Months Marathon. Follow me over there. If you go to the link in my bio, I've got a free running community for the over 35s. You can jump in there, and it's a way of us keeping you accountable, taking you away from the noise of social media, and to give you some support as well. So again, Beth, thank you very much indeed for coming on today. I do appreciate it. And I'll speak to everyone again very soon indeed.